Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Good afternoon from the shores of Puget Sound, Western Washington, and Pacific Northwest. My name is Bernard McAuley, of Bernie McAuley. I used to have a hard time. People would say, who? Who? Nowadays I say Bernie Sanders. Before it was, who? Who? Well, you remember that show called Weekend at Bernie's? I think I was still alive that day, but I was really dead that weekend. It's a good weekend, even though I wasn't there. I am an author, or try to be an author anyhow, as close as I can be. I have written 2 books. I have a third one on the printer right now, working not the printer, but on the screen, in my computer and storage right now. I'm working on it, a little bit here and a little bit there. Hopefully we'll be out sometime after the first of the year. The first book I did was In the Shadows of the Sawtooth Ridge. Sawtooth Ridge, this is Larry Becker's story. It's the senior person in this story. And the rest of the books I'm doing are of his family and his second wife. Sawtooth Ridge is really a place in Montana. How you doing, Rebecca? How goes the battle? It's really, the Sawtooth Ridge is actually a place in Montana. It's near the eastern edge of the Rockies. It's very, the weather is sometimes can be pretty bad. Wintertime, the wind blows right off the Rockies, eastern front of the Rockies. It's a beautiful place. David Letterman has a home in that area, but it's Augusta, Montana. I've fished there. I've hunted back in the Bob Marshall Wilderness behind the Sawtooth Ridge, and I'm also what you call team roping. It's a 2-man, 2-horse type of roping, where you rope a steer, one heads and one gets the legs, the rear legs. But the second book I've done is the one which we're talking about today, kind of, is Beyond the Sawtooth Ridge. But it's Joni's story. It's Larry Becker's daughter's story. It's kind of Joni decides she's going to follow in her father's footsteps and become a Navy pilot. Her father, who was a Navy pilot, and he was a prisoner of war during Vietnam. Some of us know about Vietnam, and that's kind of where the whole series will begin is back with Larry. But this is Joni. She picks up. We pick up on this one basically when she graduates from high school, decides that she's going to attend the Naval Academy and become a pilot, also a Navy pilot. Kind of tells of her story. It doesn't kind of, but it tells of her story through the Annapolis, through flight school, and also through the time when she transfers, transfers to Woodby Island. This is all fiction. Some of it's my own personal experiences, but both books are fiction. It's a fictional family that, up on that area, and I could write a lot of books, but all of my books are fictional. It's all from stories that I've accumulated over the years, working for the airlines, being in the service, and also being raised on a ranch in eastern Montana, and also basically working in Glacier National Park, the crown jewel of the national park system, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I've did a lot of experience. Some of these books, as I said, there's many stories mixed up into one that I've had, pilots, crew members. It makes a difference because that's a good question, Rebecca, and I thank you for asking it. It's different. It's fictional, but yet at the same time, I try to make it so real. Many people have asked me, "Is this your story?" And no, it isn't my story, but it's fictional. It happens during the time that it was a rough time in those years. Vietnam, that wasn't a very popular war. A prisoner coming home from Vietnam and trying to adapt back to the real life. I've seen it happen. I've been there present in some of those instances, and it's war that, as I said yesterday, I think many people wanted to forget it because I can remember the war as Walter Cronkite, his afternoon CBS News. It was a war that was on TV. In fact, it was a war that was first broadcast on TV, and then going through the Nixon era, where Nixon was being forced out of office, and some of those times, high inflation during those times, also after the war, something that we went through. But there's also a family going back. Larry's Joni's father returning to the ranch, buying the family ranch, and taking over the family ranch, which he was the second oldest, was supposed to be long gone. And that's some of my experiences too. So it's that time. It's that time of history. I don't know whether it's history or not, but it's fictional. The characters are fictional. And a lot of it is on our stories that we said among the airline people. One of the things that I said yesterday, one of the things I told you or showed yesterday is my horse. If you want to see my horse, that's can't be fancy. That's me on my horse here a couple years ago, and I'm quite enjoy horseman. My son is probably one of the top quarter horse trainers in the United States. His partner is one of the top judges in the United States for judging quarter horses. You might see him around some of the quarter horse shows now, or horse shows. And the below picture was taken of me fly fishing on the Bitterroot River in western Montana, another area where there's a lot of, unfortunately for us, for locals, movie stars down there in that area. But I didn't catch any fish, and neither did the game warden who was next door to me that particular day. So it lays back. But one of the things I started, I was looking for today. Yesterday, I was telling you about nature and stopping along a lake, Dewey Lake on the Pacific Northwest Trail in Washington, and watching the fish jump and not being able to catch any. just sitting here and listening to nature. And I just thought I'd read you a couple of excerpts from both books. The first one being, if you wish to say, is first one is The Shadows of Sawtooth Ridge. That is the Larry Becker story, so to speak. That's Joni's father. And it kind of gives you an update on it. And I've had my eyes dilated this morning, so I'm out of whatever touch with the rest of the world sometimes. And anyhow, here's from Larry Becker's story, and it's about kind of Larry Becker thinking to himself, sitting on a log or stump down by the creek. This stump becomes part of every story that I have, just about. And he's going back. He's just about ready to get married, and his two children are ready to accept a stepmother in. And he's sitting back down on the log, and he's listening to nature and just thinking to himself, which we all do at some times or another. So much has changed since returning and assuming my grandparents' role as gatekeeper of this special place. I can now look back on it as a new life. It was a time to begin where I left off. I finally came to the realization my first night back to our home in the Twin Cities that Eve, my wife, was gone, but her memory not forgotten. We all miss her and her positive attitude, the beautiful, radiant smile she possessed for each of us. This story is mine and my family that we began laying the foundation for. The day I stepped off that C-141 in the Philippines, Eve's memory will live forever in our hearts. She and later her parents took on an active role in raising our children while I was absent for 5 years. That's kind of the original where that first story comes from, and that's Joni's father, who is this one right here. Bring it back over here. If you were wondering about the artist, like to thank the artist. Her name is Rachel Firkins, and she worked with me at the Griffin School District. Her artistic is all over the school. It's in many local photographs. She is absolutely out of this world as far as doing these books and also doing these covers. This next one is a little excerpt from my book, The Joni Story, the last book that I just finished and is being out there right now. You can pick it up at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. It'll be right there. Or go to my website, BernieMcAuleyBooks.com. And you can see my first name there and be BernieMcAuleyBooks.com. And we'd love to see you. It's Rebecca again. Thank you. For modern readers who have not witnessed the horrors of the Vietnam, what lesson or values you want to share with them? I guess just in a few words, war is hell. And knowing it's not a TV movie. It's far from a TV movie. And we live in maybe getting a little political here, but we live in a society where people think everything's a TV show. And it's not, it's real, it's out there. It's for us people that have been there and done it, not necessarily us, but people who have been there and walked through the rice paddies and so forth. It was real. It's not a TV movie. It's not a conspiracy. It's real. And the people, the veterans that came back, I just first really started appreciating a little bit more myself when Desert Storm, which Joni had to take place in, this one right here. I was coming home and we have a bridge up by a place called Fort Lewis. And every night or every afternoon when I came home from work at Northwest Airlines, I would see these people up there waving the flag. Uh, and another thing they said, let not forget those going into service and so forth. And I would say about 95% of those people that were standing on that bridge every evening or every afternoon were Vietnam veterans. They wanted to make sure that the people at Desert Storm and the people hadn't been forgotten when they left. And it was almost a tear come through to your eyes when you went under it. This is another one I want to read to you. It's kind of another excerpt, if I can go through it, talking about Larry Becker. He was sitting down by the stream, sitting on that log. And it's kind of, Joni is between training and heading out and going to her first duty station as a naval aviator. And she's down there in that same creek. I'm sitting on that same cottonwood stump. Life for me slowed down somewhat for a couple of weeks while I was at home. I was either outside helping my father or inside helping my mother. Then there were days when Dakota, my mother, would be in the den typing away. She always worked with some relaxing music. I would often go out and sit on Al Tacone, that is the cottonwood stump, and listen as nature took over the moment. Many times a deer would join me, or an owl would listen to my thoughts. Peaceful. Here's another one, kind of later on, when Joni and her fiance is sitting on the front porch of his parents' home in also Montana, around Lewistown, Montana. I replied, I know what you mean. My life last few years has been full of noise. I love quiet. My father always returned to that cottonwood stump by the creek. He quietly sits there and lets nature talk to him. You know, Jim, it works. I've seen him go down there often to think, and I've done it myself a few times, several times. Later on, that same stump, and Jim and I had a heart-to-heart discussion about marriage. He loved me and I loved him, but I had experienced the effects of war on my own family. My father still carries the carriage of war. I still believe the stress of the unknown caused my mother's cancer. She took up flying to provide for the family in case my father did not return. The daily news and the continuous pain took their toll. Once in a while, I look at that notebook Dee Dee made for me all over my mother's notes. Even though Dee Dee has been a great mother, I still miss my mother, Eve, and wish she was here. I also feel my father will always miss her too. His comment years ago when I started in Annapolis was, your first love will be your most memorable, so savor the moment. And these two were sitting on his parents' front porch, and it was just before Desert Storm. And her fiance or her boyfriend at that time was just about ready to be recalled to duty. He was a airline pilot, as I told you earlier, but he was going to be recalled to duty, and he would be the first one to go to Desert Storm since he had already completed all of his training and everything. It was August 2nd when everyone woke up to the news that Iraq had begun invading Kuwait. Betsy's crew had just managed, as Betsy was her roommate, crew had just managed to take down one of the most significant drug running operations in the history of the Navy. She was proud of that accomplishment. She called the commander center. They informed her that the operations would continue for the foreseeable future. It was a time of war. Desert Storm for the daughter now. And it was similar to probably Larry Becker back in the time in the late 70s. And I can remember many pilots coming into operations where I worked in Minneapolis and again in Great Falls, and also in Seattle, reminded me that this was their last commercial flight for some time because they'd just been recalled to duty. It was a different time of year, and you know, I can still remember when the gas lines back in '73, because of the gas shortages and so forth that we had. I can remember a couple other things along the way. After it seemed like every war that we've ever had, even after World War II, I can remember my parents talking about the high prices of things back after World War II. And I was born, in fact, May 7, 1946 was the day, 1 year after the armistice was signed in Germany, a surrender of Germans during World War II. So, and that's what basically my book's about about people. They're not real, they're fictional, but it's all about being part of life. Life does go on, and Joni's life went on. She was a very happy young lady. She was happy that she had received her wings of gold as the second member of the family. She was happy because she was a woman in a man's world. Very proud of her goals she had set, that she had completed those goals as she went on through life. She was happy. She was learning more about her stepmother as they spent time together from after she had completed flight school in Texas, and they drove home together and returning back to Montana. And her knowledge of learning, her love of people, her love of life. And Larry was the same way. Her dad was the same way. He was kind of early in his lifetime when he encouraged his wife take up flying. Having women in the cockpit, even commercial airplanes at that particular time, was an unknown. And he encouraged his wife. His wife was a flight attendant, and he encouraged his wife, if I'm gone, learn how to fly, learn how to get your license, get your commercial license, get all your license put together. You enjoy it, and by that time, just if I'm not home, you'll be able to fly in those airplanes. And that was about the time that women started flying. I remember Frontier Airlines having the very first woman flying for them out of Denver, Colorado. And her chief pilot at that time says, she taught me how to fly. So now she's my pilot. She's on my team. Again, I remember one of my trips to Southeast Asia. I'd come back, visited some friends in Los Angeles. In fact, I worked the Super Bowl in Los Angeles at that time. And I left out of Burbank Airport to Seattle. And I was really surprised. I kept hearing this lady giving weather reports of Portland and so forth, and how high we were flying and where we were flying, and naming the mountains like Mount Hood along the side of the aircraft as we were flying up along the Cascades. And I kept thinking, man, I've never seen that. Doesn't sound like a flight attendant, because she didn't tell us that little story. So, and I keep getting these little blinking in here. I hope I'm still with you and talking and so forth. I don't really know what's going on with our feed. Must be something going on. But anyhow, when I opened the door, when we landed in Portland, and out of the cockpit comes this lady, and in fact, she was the daughter of one of my favorite Western movie stars. I can't remember his name now, but it was all different. Before I left, retired from the airlines back in 2005, I was able to board many aircraft with all women crew members. That's from front to back. And they were good crew members. They were very, very valuable assets. And one of uh, Southwest Airlines had a problem one time with the flight they didn't think was ever going to land. And when it landed, here was an ex-military pilot, woman flying the airplane, and they said she did such a beautiful job of keeping the passengers relaxed and settled down and landed the airplane. And it was really something to feel and see. And I hope someday that along the way that it happens that women enter the workforce, no problem at all. They are in the space station, I believe it or not. It's something we never had before. And just that was everything. I think, respect that I'm about ready to lose it. And I hope that stays back line.
Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.